guys, what is going on? Blossom's back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives and another episode of What Can You Get From That Pack. I know that this video is a little bit late, but obviously I did the 1 mil pack opening and I did the prize car autobiography video, and it's not that I was super busy yesterday, guys. I was busy, but I lost my voice. That's the one thing I've kind of realized when I started becoming a boxing coach, is that sometimes I need to record more than 2 videos in a day, just in case I lose my voice for one day and then realize, oh my god, I can't record. But anyway, guys, you guys know how it is. What can you get from that pack? We have Dirk Kaiser, Daily Driver, Frequent Provider, Pernicious Ulcer, as well as Hot Garbage, and I'll be reviewing the cars that you can get from the Lotus carbon fiber for the BMW M5. It's not Lotus carbon fiber though. I mean, it is, but it's like a very curated Lotus carbon fiber. Now, Lotus is a brand that you cannot go wrong with. If they did all Lotuses, which I think would have actually been better, that would have been a really good pack nevertheless. But you know, even if they limited it like this one only to World Expo and Lock to Lock, still a really good pack. So let's get into it, and we're gonna start off with all the ultra Lotuses. Now, all of these ultra Lotuses, they're all not hot garbage, but they're also all not Dirk Kaiser, if you get what I mean. The only issue with every single Lotus that you see over here is that every single one of them is overshadowed by the Zenith. In fact, these cars are still overshadowed by their Lotus counterpart in the 340R, except the 240R. So it's very interesting. The 240R Exige, I feel like a very high daily driver is a respectable place to put it, mainly because the Zenith exists, but more importantly, the Zenith is the same RQ as the Lotus Exige 240R. On top of that, there is a car that's still even better than the Zenith, and that is the Maxi Turbo, the Peugeot. But that one you can give a little bit of leeway to the Zenith, because one is front-wheel drive and one is rear-wheel drive. But for the Zenith's case and the Exige case, we're comparing 2 cars that are rear-wheel drive, 2 cars that are RQ63, 2 cars that are British. They are very similar, and the Zenith is just better. Now, moving on to the other Lotus, I think it's gonna be a pretty quick video. It's a small pack, and I don't have much to say about everything over here. Everything I would say is pretty obvious, and I don't think any car really stands out in terms of MRA. You know, the Lotus are nerfed now, so none of them are in the 90s or even the 70s. All of these Lotus are in the 60s. Only 2 of the Epics are in the 70 ranges, but we'll get to that later. So next up is the Lotus Elise 111R, and honestly, Pernicious Ulcer. As far as Lotuses go, this is not very strong. 86 handling for an RQ55 is okay. It's okay. Alright, it's okay. 86 for an RQ55 is okay, but when you think about it, this is a Lotus, and every time you think about a Lotus, the only thing that it cannot fail in is 86, and 86 for a Lotus is pretty disappointing. And it's the same thing for the Lotus Elise SC. RQ62, only 86 for an RQ, is not very strong, but I'm going to give it a low frequent provider, mainly because at least it also brings a very low 0 to 60 to the table. I have it maxed out, and it's 3.795, which has the same stats as many RQ63 hybrid Ultras, to be fair. But obviously this is cheaper in RQ, and that makes sense because it only has 60 MRI and a lower top speed, because a lot of Ultras are capable of hitting 3.795. Think Ultra Porsches mostly, and obviously they can get 170, 180 miles per hour for a top speed. So, but they don't have really good MRI anyway. Neither does the Lotus, so it makes sense for the Lotus to be lower RQ than those Porsches. So I'll give it a decent spot. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit too mean to the Lotus 111R. Maybe I should put it in frequent provider. It's just that when I think of RQ55, I always tend to lean to the Renault Desire anyway. Now moving on to the Lotus Esprits. Now the Lotus Esprits are, I mean, I don't have a lot of good things to say about it, honestly. They basically are worse versions of the Elises because they are heavier, right? They're heavier cars. They don't really have better MRA than the Elises either. I mean, the Esprits aren't too heavy. I mean, for example, this is 1,240, which is still a light car. But when you compare it to all these Lotuses, whatever you want to call them, that are under 1 ton, these cars just don't really hold a candle to it anymore. 4.885. I mean, it's decent on paper stats, and it's a good car to lose by 50, but is it good enough to be an RQ57? I would say it's a very, very low frequent provider. At the end of the day, like, maybe I should be extra strict towards these Lotuses, because Lotuses are usually very good cars. Like, they're very reliable. I don't think there's going to be a single hot garbage take. But I'm going to put the Esprit Turbo in Pernicious also, just because it's a slightly worse version. But then again, it makes sense because it's cheaper to use in RQ. But 84 handling for an Ultra just doesn't really cut it for me, to be honest. There are some exceptions, like the Lotus, not the Lotus, sorry, but what was basically a Lotus, right? It shares the same chassis, but the Dodge Circuit EV. But the EV has a low 0 to 60, also is very light, it's lighter than the Esprit, and it's cheaper to use, so that's an exception. And overall, I mean, it just gets the wins on the track sets. But yeah, the Esprit Turbo, I would say, is probably like the worst car that you can get from this pack, so, and I got it once, unfortunate. Moving on, Lotus Exige GT3. This is a car that I genuinely want. Incredibly light, very, very good handling, a low 0 to 60. It ticks all the marks of what you expect from a Lotus, definitely Der Kaiser. Exige V6 Cup is also very strong. I'm actually going to put it in Daily Driver. When you max it out 233, it hits 3.199, which is really good stats for an RQ73. On top of that, it's a very lightweight car. It doesn't have MRI, but none of these Lotuses do. 64.91 MRI, but it's a very lightweight car, coming in at 1,100 kilograms, or 1,133 kilograms to be completely exact. And unlike its cooler brother, the Exige Cup R, this one can actually be used in the rain. And one good thing about these Loti, one thing that they have over a lot of the really good twisty cars like the Donkervorts and all that kind of stuff, is that they have traction control and ABS, both. The Exige V6 Cup R also has traction control and ABS, but it doesn't really matter because that only really is a difference most of the time in either 0 to 100 to 0, where you don't want to put your Lotuses on anyway, or in the rain. And the Exige Cup R is a car that you're going to use that you cannot use in the rain because it has slick tires, but I'm still going to put it as Der Kaiser because there are not a lot of slick tire cars that can hold a candle to what the Lotus Exige V6 brings. It has a 92 handling combined with a 3.50 to 60 for 78 RQ. That is incredible value, seriously good value, and incredibly light, coming in at 1,040 tons. That's it, man. You max this thing out, it will be under a ton. It's a very, very strong car. Really happy to get that. Next one is the Lotus Elise Sprint 220. It's like, you know, it's like a Zenith on slight steroids, but it's a lot more expensive to upgrade. I mean, what this car is a frequent provider because it does the job, but it isn't in a good position, right? It's like you're doing a good job at your workplace, you know what I mean? But you don't like the position that you're in. Maybe you have like a entry level position, but you're doing very well in it and you deserve to be better. I don't know. Maybe that's a decent analogy, maybe not. But the thing about the Lotus Elise Sprint is that it fulfills its purpose, where it is able to kill ultra rares, like good ultra rares, right? But it will not hold a candle to an epic. So unfortunately, I'm just gonna give it freaking provider. That's about it. Next up is the Lotus Emira. Now the Lotus Emira is an interesting one because it is the highest RQ Lotus. I mean, sorry, not the highest RQ, the best MRA of all the Lotuses that you can get from epic and below. And it's not even a good number. It's 77. But I guess this is your drag Lotus, and it might actually be pretty useful in the final. Obviously, guys, as you know of this series, I'll be showing you two different tier lists, right? This one is in a general sense. I should have said that earlier, but I think you guys know how it works already. This is in a general sense, and I'll be showing you another tier list on how useful these cars are in the final. The Emira, I think in the final will be alright. It is not as good as the Legendary, of course, and it obviously still lacks in comparison to a 3.50 to 60, and it'll only catch up on like a 1 mile, for example. 77 isn't good, okay? In a general sense, like this is a Pernicious also kind of car. It has 90 and it has 99 handling. That is really good. Like, I respect that. 0 to 60 isn't the worst thing in the world as well, but even though it has 77 MRA and it stands out here, it is still not good. It is still 77 MRA. In a general sense, it is still very, very weak. So, unfortunately, I'm going to put it in Pernicious Ulcer. It is a little bit of a Lotus dragster, and that's it. Next up is the Lotus Evora GT. Now, the Lotus Evora GT is, in my opinion, also a bit of a Pernicious Ulcer. Once again, it might be quite strict of me, but here's the thing, right? It's more expensive to use than the Lotus Elise Sprint. So I would expect this car to be better everywhere compared to the Lotus Elise Sprint. Elise Sprint. But Not really, okay? It has a higher top speed, a way higher top speed, a lower 0 to 60, but they have the same handling. On top of this, the Lotus Evora GT actually has less MRA compared to the Lotus Elite Sprint, which is quite shocking. This is 68, and this is 72, not to mention that the 220 is also lighter, and the 220 isn't even that good of a car. So yeah, Evora GT, pernicious ulcer at best in my opinion. Okay, next up is the Lotus Exige not V6, sorry, the 380. The 380 is strong, man. 100 handling, a ridiculously low 0 to 60, also has performance tires. 63 MRA isn't the best thing in the world, but it also has a very light, well, not very light, but it has, you know, it's very lightweight. That's what I'm trying to say. 1,105 kilograms. I'm gonna put it as their Kaiser. I really want that, actually. This was a tier 3 prize card given out in the Tri Series, I think last year, and I wanted that. I can't remember what was the prize car. I'm not sure if I won the prize car or I just got tier 4. I can't remember. But that is a really good car. I really wish I had that for this final. I don't. Next one is the Lotus SLF1. In my opinion, is one of the coolest looking cars. I just love the spec, the black and the red and the gold rims. Oh, beautiful, right? It's a very lightweight car. Once again, just a slightly worse version, honestly, than the V6 Cup. But it also is cheaper in RQ. They have the same exact MRA. But unfortunately, I'm going to put it under frequent provider just because these two cars are way too close. I'd rather use the V6 Cup if I can. I'm so surprised that this was given out in the prelims. Not in the prelims, but in the qualifiers. This car's actually pretty good. Next up is the Exige Sport 350. Now, the Exige Sport 350, I have to put it with the V6 Cup. These two cars are exactly the same. They both weigh, well, actually, this one's only 5 kilograms lighter. So this is 5 kilograms lighter, but outside of that, these two cars are the same. Same top speed, same MRA, same 0 to 60, same handling, the works, right? So if anything, on paper, this car would be better on like slalom and anything where slightly lighter weight will be the game changer. But honestly, these two cars are honestly the same. Lotus Evora GX, I'm gonna give it their Kaiser as well. It is, you know, what it is. It's a Lotus with MRA. Not a lot of those anymore. The Lotus Evora GX has 89 MRA. It has the lowest 0 to 60 of every car you can get from this pack. It definitely is the best car here. And last two honorable mentions goes to these two rares. Honestly, like, these rares are both frequent provider. Like, they're both like, you know, they're what you expect from a Lotus. They're lightweight and they handle decently well for what they are, which are rear-wheel drive standard tire cars. They are very useful for the final, but in terms of a general sense, I think they're pretty okay cars. Now, let's move on to how useful these cars are in a general sense. Alright guys, so I want to just let you know right now, this is me judging the pack. Literally just the cars you can get from the pack in this Tri-Series. Let's not forget that you can use 2 Lotuses that are not from PL15 and Lock to Lock, or World Expo and Lock to Lock, okay? So take this with a grain of salt. Once again, a lot of requirements. This isn't the best hand per se. This isn't the literal best hand for the final, but this is the literal best hand that you can get from the pack that you need to open for the final, okay? Because remember, this pack doesn't give you Lotuses outside of the Lotuses from PL15 and PL17, and on top of that, obviously you can use duplicates in the final. So let's say that you are a brand new player and you only open this pack and you only had unique cars, no duplicates. What would be the option to go? All right, well, the best possible hand in my opinion, the Lotus Evora GX, the Exige V6, the Lotus Exige GT3, the Lotus 7 Twin Cam, and the Lotus Exige Cup 330. Okay, this car, this Lotus Twin Cam, is going to be used on the off-road track sets. That being said, this isn't the best car in the final for the off-road track set. It's a really interesting one because like the Lotus 7 is the better car for the, like these two cars, right? Like the Lotus 7 is the better car for the dirt hill climb, but the Elan is the better car for the forest slalom, I believe. So it's kind of like, it's a 50-50 no matter how you bite the bullet. That being said though, if you have the Lotus 211 at 323, which I surprisingly do, that car might be an X factor for you because it is going to be a very strong car for the dirt section because the Lotus actually beats the Elan as well as the twin cam on the forest slalom. I'm not too sure about hill climb. It's hard to check hill climb times if you haven't joined the final, and I've not joined the final because if you check Top Drive's records, everything is just DNF, so you don't know who finishes further than the other car, if you get what I mean. But in my opinion, if I didn't have the 211, I would choose the Lotus Twin Cam SS. Like, if I didn't have any other Lotuses, only the ones, if I had every single Lotus only from PL 15 and 17, I would choose the Lotus, you know, Twin Cam SS and all the 4 cars over here. Obviously, you have your Evora GX for your dragsters, and then you have your GT3 and your V6 for your twisties, and then this is the next best option to use. For possible prize car winning, I chose the second best option in my opinion, which is the Elan FHC, as well as your 3 best twisty Lotuses. Like I said, these 3 cars are very, very similar together. Not enough on their own are going to be these 3, obviously, with your Ultra Rare Killer. This car isn't very strong either, as well as the Lotus Emira. Now, the Lotus Emira might be more decent. Some people might put it even possible prize car winning if you don't have the GX. Okay, fair enough. It is going to beat a lot of people on the drags, but that's it. And then Sus would be the Ultra Rares, and then See a Doctor would be the weaker Ultra Rares. So Sus is the stronger Ultra Rares. See a Doctor is a weaker Ultra Rares. There's enough RQ in this final for you to run 5 epics or 4 epics and a legendary, something like that. So Ultra Rares are not going to be key in this final. There's not a lot of places where you need to save a lot of RQ. But anyway, guys, that's going to be my assessment of this pack and the final. I do really want this prize car. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it though. In my hand, it consists of the Exige V6, the V6 Cup, as well as the Evora GT. These are the 3 Lotuses. So 1 from prize car winning, 1 from possible, and 1 from not enough on their own. I have 2 of these max, and this is slightly upgraded, and then I have 2 pretty strong epic Lotuses that are not from PL 17 or 15, but I don't have any legendaries. So if I do get the M5, it's going to be close, but I do wish you good luck as well. I hope you get the prize car, and guys, remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and honestly, Clarkson, I hope you're having a great time. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville.